Okay, I think we'll get started. So if you're coming from the GNL project, I encourage you to look at the introductory video for this playlist to see if this is the right course for you. Otherwise, we'll pick up where we've been talking about. It seems like we're moving into a new topic here, magnetics, because we're coming off of electricity, electrostatics, and in reality, these two are intimately related, and oftentimes we say electrostatics or we say magnetostatics, but really it's the theory of electromagnetism. And so we'll see even as early as today that these two are related, and moving charges will respond to a magnetic field and moving charges will create a magnetic field. Okay, but magnets are definitely different than charged objects. And so we're going to start with not going deep into the theory. It involves a lot of calculus and other things. So we're just going to make some experimental observations, and just see what that logically leads to. And then we'll talk about how the electric field behaves and how it's related to current. Okay, so we're all probably familiar with magnets that we played with as kids. And so let's just formalize some of the observations. We know a compass will point north, and we know that the Earth has its own magnetic field. But if we were to bring another magnet in close to that compass would start to go crazy, or if the magnet's close enough, it would point towards the north end of that magnet. The poles, which we call north and south, just the names that were given, largely coming from the idea that the Earth has a magnetic field. Like poles will repel, so if we try to bring two norths together, we'll feel a repulsion, much like bringing two positive charges together or two negative charges together. And again, we do not have to touch these to feel this repulsion. If we bring so a south and a north together, then we'll get an attraction, just like oppositely charged particles. Now, what's interesting here is if you cut a magnet, you get two magnets. So if you have a north and a south, and you cut it in half, you don't get a north and a south. Now, this is very distinct from electric dipole. We talked about the dipole, where we have a positive charge, negative charge, and they're connected. If we were to cut that, we'd get a positive charge, we get a negative charge. So the positive charge can exist by itself, the negative charge can exist by itself. Those are called monopoles. You break that dipole, you get a monopole. Well, the base unit for magnetics is the magnetic dipole. So there are no magnetic monopoles, at least in the type of classical magnetics we're talking about in nearly all of physics. Okay, we know that magnets can pick up some objects, but not other objects. Those objects tend to be metals, although certainly not all metals are attracted to magnets. So you can pick up a paper clip with a magnet, but you can't pick up a small piece of aluminum foil with a magnet. And then magnets do not induce a polarization. So if we bring a magnet close to a piece of metal, we don't cause a separation of charge like we do if we were to bring a charged object. So it's very, very clear that these are similar to charges, to electrostatics, but it is not the same as electricity. So magnetics is different than electronics here. It is a long-range force, so we have similar type of force experience when we try to push two norths together or try to pull apart a north and a south. So it's a long range. There are no monopoles, as I mentioned, and again, only some material is magnetic. Okay? And that we won't talk about. This gets into the materials chemistry of it all. But if the material has some free electrons in its orbits, then those tend to be magnetic, and those that are paired, all the electrons are paired, tend to be non-magnetic. Okay. Let's imagine we've got some external magnetic field. Let's say this is the Earth, and this is another magnet. So the magnet that's in a compass, for example, or just another magnet that's on a pivot point here. If we're transverse to the field here, this will experience a torque and will point so that the north points up with this field pointing this way. Now, if we were to look at the single magnet just by itself and draw the magnetic field lines around that magnet. So we're going to turn off this external field now. Just look at the magnet itself. And we see here that the convention is we draw field lines from north to south so that the arrows here are pointing from north to south. So these are very similar to the electric field lines, but these are now the magnetic field lines. Notice this looks exactly like the field lines we drew for a dipole. So a magnetic dipole and a electric dipole, if you're just looking at the field line, you don't know you're not told one's magnetic and one's electric, they're going to look the same. Okay, well, what if we take this magnet and bring in another magnet? Let's bring it in so that their north and south are closest together. Then we have an attractive force, and if we were to draw the magnetic field here, these lines, instead of diverting to this south, will be connected to the south of this adjacent magnet. And so we see here field lines connecting these, and this is indicating an attractive, or this will result in an attractive force because the south wants to go this way, the north wants to go that way. Now let's flip this one around so that we're putting north to north, and now we have opposing fields, and we get this case very similar to when we tried to put two positive charges together. We have a very special point right here where the field is 0, but otherwise the field lines come together and sort of just shoot off away from this central point. Okay? So you want to just practice drawing with a magnet and then with two magnets next to each other. Maybe you want to see if you can draw two magnets like this and then like this. We did like this and like this. Okay. Now, let's connect with current in the wire, and this is really the profound thing about electricity and magnetism, and really sits at the heart of electromagnetics. So if we have a current flowing in a wire, it means we have some moving charges, and we're using conventional current here now, so the positive charges are moving this way. We will notice that this will create a magnetic field. So if we were to bring a compass close to here, we would get a response by that compass. Okay, so we want to be able to describe that field, and the field actually is cylindrically symmetric around this wire, and so anywhere along, imagine this wire just a long straight wire going off to infinity, and we've got current here. Anywhere along this wire, we have a cylindrically symmetric field. So the field lines are circles, and then as we go out from the wire, we see that the field strength dies off as 1 over the radius, and then it's proportional to the current. So this makes some sense. If we have no current, we should get no field. So if I is 0, the field strength would be 0. If we have a lot of current, we should get a lot of field. So we expect it to be proportional to the current. Turns out it's linearly proportional. And then if we look at the distance, if we go off miles away, we would expect that we would not feel the field. But if we're really right next to the wire, then we will feel the magnetic field. This is a constant of nature. This is magnetic permeability, and this is a small number actually. It's 1.26 times 10 to the minus 6 Tesla, which is our unit of magnetism per meter per amp. So the magnetic field strength, B, the units, are Tesla. That's the SI units. So this is not area. This is amps here. Okay. Now let's. So what we want to do now over the next few days is we're going to really make a good use of our right hand, the so-called right hand rule. So we're going to do, there's a couple of ways to use our right hand rather than our left hand to get the direction of the magnetic field. So right now we just had talked about the magnitude. So what we do for a straight wire is we use our thumb, and the thumb will be in the direction of the conventional current. So if we're using our right hand, thumb in the direction of our conventional current. If we're talking about, say, electrons moving, then we would put our thumb in the opposite direction of those electrons, because the electrons are negatively charged. So this is the direction of positive current, so conventional current. And then if we curl our fingers, this is the direction of the curl of that field. So if I am going this way, then I tried to indicate it here with the arrows on the front side. On the front side, they're going this way, and then on the back side, they're going that way. So swirling around like this. And we can see that with our right hand rule here. So if I'm like this, my field is coming out of the board right here, this way, and then the field is pointing into the board over on this side. So that's how we do it with a straight current. Okay, let's look at a looped wire now. So what's interesting with a looped wire is, let's say we get some current going in this. And for now, let's not worry exactly how we got the current going, but we've got a loop and we've got a radius to that loop. If we were to look at the structure of the magnetic field around this loop, it looks a lot like a bar magnet. So this actually looks almost identical to a bar magnet with a north and a south on either end. So imagine this being a little bar magnet like that. And we can see these lines swooping around here as these lines here. So again, we can use our right hand rule, and we're going to use it in two ways. Here, we are going to now take our fingers to represent the direction of the conventional current, and then our field points out in the direction of our thumb. So I'm like this. That means my field is pointing out. If my current was going the other way, then my field would be pointing in. Okay? And then same thing here. I've turned this ring on its side such that I've gone like this. So we're swooping out in front. So I go like this, and my north then is pointing out. So my thumb is the direction that north is pointing. Okay. All right. Let's make sure that's consistent with this rule. So now we're going to take our thumb and we're going to put it in the direction of the current. So let's imagine grabbing this loop right in the part that's most facing the camera here. So I'm going to put my thumb like this, and now my fingers will curl up. So we see the north being on the interior of the loop, and then they'll come around, and on the exterior of the loop, they'd be looping down to this side. Maybe a better way to see it would be to be over here. So here the current's this way. Okay, I'm coming up, and still my field is still coming up, and then if I loop around, it's looping around, and on the outside here, it's looping downward. So the field lines will trace our fingers, again, consistent with this idea here. And the fact that we wrapped it in a loop rather than a straight wire then brings this all together to create effectively a bar magnet here. The similar formula, the permittivity of free space and the current, of course, we would expect it to be relative to the current. But now we are getting a field strength that is proportional to the radius of the loop here, inversely proportional to the radius of the loop. Finally, let's look at a really important device called a solenoid. This has N turns in a helical pattern, and we talk about the density of that helix as how many turns per length L. So N over L is what's important. Do we have a lot of turns in a meter or a small number of turns in a meter? And the field strength will be proportional to that circular density, and also the current, of course. So we see here N over L, the magnetic permeability, and then the current. And it's still it's counterintuitive and counterintuitive for me too. Notice the radius drops out here, so we don't have to worry about the radius of the solenoid, just that turn density. Now, what's so important about the solenoid is that inside the solenoid, we have a uniform magnetic field. And so compare this to the parallel plate capacitor. Parallel plate capacitor was so useful as a model in physics because it's the device that has a uniform electric field. Well, the analog role here is the solenoid, which has now a uniform magnetic field in the interior of the loop. So if we were to put something inside the loop, it would experience a constant magnetic field. So when we say things like this, oh, it's in a constant external field or something, we can imagine that we've got this big solenoid around us and we're doing the experiment inside that solenoid. Okay, so this is our first foray into magnetics. We see that it has a lot of similar properties to electronics, but also different. And we also see that there is a very strong connection between moving charges, so current, and magnetic field. All right, so we will continue now to add more to this. Next time we'll look at the forces involved. So if a charge is moving through a magnetic field, does it experience a force? And so we'll talk about that next time.